Hi, I'm Alex doing Alex Things, and today just wanted to show this antique Eskimo fan I picked up at the flea market. It's the model 10103, made by a Bersted manufacturing company, which, as I understand it, these were the cheapest fans you could get. This is McGraw-Edison. I went through it once, cleaned it up, and oiled it. Got the oscillator working because the gearbox was full of just this grease that had hardened almost into like rock. Everything looks okay inside, as far as I can tell. I'm not an expert on these things, but I did use the wrong kind of oil, which I guess there's a right and a wrong oil. This is what I used, and apparently this is what you should not use. This is what you should be using, the Blue Label 3-in-1, the motor oil SAE 20. So I'm going to take this apart again, and I'll show you how to take it apart, and then I'm going to re-oil the bearings with this stuff. I'm not going to go completely into taking the bearings out of the housing and I'll show you later, but they're riveted into this housing, and there's some felt. As much as I want to replace those bearings right now, it's one of those things where if it's not broken, don't fix it. Let's get into taking it apart. Before you start, always make sure it's unplugged. Okay, so now it's going to come off. Make sure you mark your wires so you don't forget which ones go where. Actually, let me grab an ohm reading. It's about 34 ohms. Here's the inside of that with the little switch. This oil port lines up with this, which we'll see in a second why that is there. Okay, I'll take the gearbox off. Like I said, I've had this off and I repacked it with grease. That's how the gearbox works for the oscillator. Here's the inside of the gearbox. It looks like there's a little bit of felt right here. But here's a closer look at that thumb screw. So you just tighten that, and when you tighten on that, it grabs that shaft. There's a little spacer here. And if you loosen it, then it'll continue to drive these gears no matter what when it's operating, but it just won't grab on the lever and oscillate the fan. You can see the outline where the gearbox is. There was a piece of felt protruding from right here into the gearbox, which I have a feeling that's like it was like an oil reservoir because there's a bearing right here. We gotta take this piece off in order to see that. Then there is another bearing, and let me correct myself. I don't think these are bearings. I think they're bushings, and I believe they're called oil-light bushings. So it's just like I think it's called a sintered bronze or sintered metal, and it's very porous and it holds oil. So there's another one of these bushings right here, and this is the oil hole for it. It's easy to overlook because it doesn't say oil right here, and it's obscured by the fan blades. So I have a feeling that these bearings probably on these fans tend to go out more than the other ones simply because, I mean, if you don't know it's there, you'd never know because it doesn't say oil, even though this one also has felt behind it as like an oil reservoir. Anyway, let's get that piece off. Now be very careful when you're taking this apart. I didn't know this in the beginning. There's that little set screw. I didn't know this in the beginning, but there are these, I guess they're called fiber washers. These ones almost look like they're made out of some kind of rubber. So you can see you've got two of these black kind of plastic looking washers, and then there's one white one in the middle here. I should have taken this apart on video completely the first time, but I attempted to and I got frustrated with trying to do camera angles, so I said I'm just going to fix it and enjoy it. And then when I realized that I needed a different type of oil, I figured, okay, I'll give it another shot. But anyway, so there's three of these washers, and I know these ones all went on the other side of that gear that attaches to the shaft, but I did not realize that there were other ones inside here. And so I'm hoping I got them lined up right, but I really don't know. I don't think I got it perfectly lined up last time, so there's kind of like a paper rubbing sound. See, I can't hear it at all now, but we gotta take these guys off. And these go straight through. And then this whole piece comes off. You can see those washers that are still on there. Remember that oil hole I was telling you about? If you flip it around, it's got this riveted in kind of stamped cover. So it looks like when you oil through that, it drops down and ideally makes it into this little tube and then into the bushing, or into the felt that surrounds the bushing. And then from there, it goes through the pores of that centered metal and lubricates the shaft. Just Google how to re-oil oil light bearings, and there's a whole set of procedures that different people say to use. I'm just going to leave it alone because if it's not broken, don't fix it. And if it does become a problem, I guess you could always just pop these off, replace the rivets with screws, replace the felt, replace the oil light bushing, and it'd probably be good to go for another 50 years, as long as you oil it. Here's those fiber washers right here. There's two of them. Now I put these here. I don't know if this is exactly where they go because one fell out while I was trying to take this apart the first time. So I'm assuming that's where they go. And then there's a metal washer. It's kind of curved. Now I've seen in other videos, you can pop out the stator assembly at this point. I'm going to try to do that. And if it looks too difficult, I'm just not going to do it. But I'm going to turn the camera off so that I can do this safely without having to worry about camera angles. So that doesn't want to come out. I think it's because it's corroded in here. So I think I'm going to have to use some steel wool, clean that shaft up so it'll come out of that bearing. Try to clean this up good so I don't get all that crap in the bearing. Excuse me, bushing. Let's see if that slides out. So these bushings can move. So when you're putting it back together, they say to tap the shaft with the screwdriver a couple times to make sure everything lines back up. I think that did it. All right. There's the rotor or armature. All right, let's have a look inside the housing now. Put my headlamp on. So there's your front bearing. Excuse me, your front bushing. Now, one thing to note on this, I didn't realize this thing had this, but on the armature, on the rotor, you've got this little sleeve deal. It kind of goes right there. Just keep that in mind. Now I'm just going to try to clean some stuff up. Now that I've got everything cleaned up, I'm going to try to soak these bearings as best I can from the inside in the proper 3-in-1 oil. Let that sit for a while, maybe a few days, then come back and start reassembling things. All right, we're going to start by putting the armature and rotor back into the housing with the front bearing. I soaked the bearing overnight in the correct oil, and I heated it very slightly on a hot plate set inside a little bowl thing that I had some oil in there. Heated it up to about 150 degrees. Didn't want to go too hot because I don't know how all that's going to work with the housing expanding and the bearing expanding. But this motor does get pretty warm when I run it, so I figure by warming up that centered bearing and then cooling it in oil, maybe it'll absorb some new oil. Also, here's a really good look at the motor. Well, that went in easy. I switched up that order. So a plastic washer, then the metal. Let me turn the light. A plastic washer, then the metal washer, then 2 more of the plastic washers, because I don't know the exact sequence of what this was when I first took it apart, unfortunately. Okay, so now that feels a little bound up, so there we go. So notice how it'll walk right on out, or it wants to. And one thing I should mention, I don't know for sure if these gearboxes were meant to be filled with grease or oil. The original stuff that was in here looked to me like grease, but because there's that oiling port down here, that little piece of felt that broke off, part of me thinks that maybe it was filled with oil at one time. But most everybody that works on these seems to put grease in it, so that's what I'm doing. I'll loosen this just a tiny bit and slide it back on the shaft a slight bit. Like there. When I first took this apart, the shaft had a very slight amount of movement this way, and I want to make sure I keep that. Okay, so it's more like that. That seems to be a little better. Oh, see that? Let's back off a little bit on that one and tighten the other one. It's a bit better. I'm going to tap the shaft now instead of after I put the gearbox on, just so I can feel. Right now that all this stuff's put back together, just make sure this is nicely greased. So attach this loosely first, and then try to put these in. I don't know why that side went in so easy, and this side is not. It does look like there's a lot of dirt in there. All right, now we're all done. I'll tighten this down so it oscillates. The 124 volts, put it to amps, and turn it on. I'll try to stand out of the wind, but so about half an amp, about 46 watts. Sounds quite a bit better than it did last time. Seems like it's spinning down a lot longer too. All right, let's try it without oscillate. Now it will frequently still turn. I think just from the torque of the blades. I'll try to point it this way. Okay, I'm gonna have to stand on the other side of it. Okay, so again, about half an amp at 123 volts and 46 watts. Now I'm going to do a spin down. I'll shut it off and then I'll count off the seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So about 24, 25 seconds. Okay, so something I just realized was I had this on kind of crooked, or I had this turned around. I don't know if it makes any difference, but this way, while it oscillates, the thumb screw stays mostly outside where you can actually get to it most of the time as it's oscillating. Again, sometimes you have to fiddle with this stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it was informative. Like I mentioned, in the future I'd really like to repaint this and properly restore it, redo the bearings, get a new power cord. But until that time, hopefully I'll get some good use out of it. As always, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you peace. By the power of the Prince of Peace, Yeshua. Amen. See you guys. Shalom.